What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the A7E podcast. This is your host, Jigadrin. Guys, we are on episode 29 today. I have a very special guest all the way from Florida. Today, it's my cousin, Graciela. Cuz, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, I honestly, in my entire belief, did not ever think I was going to be able to do a podcast with you. So, this is super cool that you're in town. It's a very similar, or the exact reason that obviously when I was in town, Agata was in town,
Yes.
which is a unfortunate reason, but I mean, it's reality at the moment. But so we're kind of trying to take advantage, right? For the viewers, why don't you kind of introduce yourself a little bit more and tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. So hello, everybody. My name is Graciela. Some people know me as Chela, but for those of you that don't, it's either you're not a really good friend or don't know me that well. But so I myself, wow, the last time I've been in Texas has actually been 10 years. Like, I think in my memories, it just pulled up that I've been back in Texas 10 years ago. And like you said, it is for an unfortunate reason, but we live and we learn and we can only adapt from there. A little bit about myself. I know that my Mona is my sister, if y'all didn't notice a resemblance.
Yeah, identical, basically.
Yeah. And so she's been here multiple times, and I'm the oldest of four sisters, and I basically work in banking. I've been in banking for 15 years. I love it.
15 years.
Some days I love it. Some days I detest it. But I think that's with everything, especially whenever it's very customer driven.
Yeah.
I have three kids, and then my husband, Chris. And that's basically it. And then I'll let you ask the questions.
Yeah, cool. That was a phenomenal intro.
Guys, please be nice though, because I've been trying to work on this double chin, but because I've been looking at all these videos and all the podcasts, and I was like, man, they got like really good chins and stuff. So I was a little bit worried, but so if y'all see me looking at y'all, it's not that I'm conceited. I'm just trying to give you a better angle.
I think the camera angle there is good. No, but that was a phenomenal intro. Thank you for that. I think one of the not coolest things, but I think, in your field of most experience is at the moment, like, banking. And that's always interested me. You probably don't remember, but, and I did this on purpose, believe it or not. I asked you about certain things about banking and credit and things of that nature because I wanted to learn, but I also thought maybe one day we could have that conversation like over a podcast.
Yeah.
And that was honestly like when I was only like 2 episodes in, I was like, no, I know one day somehow I'm either going to go to Florida with all of my equipment and then we can have a further discussion. But, besides work, besides the 15 years of experience, obviously, you've gotten into, I'm not going to make this episode about fitness at all, but you do also exercise quite a bit, correct? And
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like right now, like I know the C word is prohibited, so I will not say it.
Thank you.
I have had the second round, unfortunately, just shortly 3 weeks ago. So I was sick like for a little bit over a month. And so I had finally got back into my rhythm back. And I know Monica is always talking about how she works out with Chris, and Chris is also my trainer, and he has done a phenomenal job, and I have seen a big change in myself and a lot more of accountability. You really have. I always say that, Chris is not for everyone. And, and if you're looking for a trainer that is going to kind of like hold your hand and stuff like that and kind of like sugarcoat stuff, Chris is definitely not the guy for you. Chris is very blunt and everything like that. But what I like about it is that myself, I'm able to give that feedback to him. Like, hey, the way that you coach me or the way that you said that, perhaps you should do this. Because at the end of the day, we live and we learn through experiences, and sometimes giving constructive criticism is the best way that you're going to learn. But whenever you're not able to take that constructive criticism, then you're never going to be expected to be able to grow, especially when people are like, I want to grow my business. You have to be open to being able to take whatever it is, whether it's good or bad. And I think that had made my relationship with Chris, my trainer, a little, a lot better, because at least he knows, hey, this is Graciela, how she is. This is what kind of she expects from me. And she expects me to be tougher on her. But at the same time, I'm also finding the demon of that myself, I am always the hardest person on myself. Like, I don't need anybody else to be hard on me, because you're not being harder on me than what I'm already being on myself. And that's because we're always our worst critic, And then it's been hard trying to be better, better in the sense to love yourself more, because we all go through it. We all go through our areas that, doesn't matter how many times you try to give yourself self affirmations that you want to be better. Like, I want to be better for myself. It's until you actually put yourself through the situation of why is it that I want to be better. And I always tell myself that I wanted to be better into fitness, not so much because I want to look better than the next girl, because at the end of the day, we all have our own, we all have our own beauty. We all, I mean, in the sometimes there's some beauty that's only at face value, because you can be ugly within and that's not going to matter. You're still going to be an ugly person. But I think about my health, especially whenever the first round of the C, it was hard. It was very, very hard. I found myself, I could understand why, if people were going through that the first round, that the rates of depression and the rates of, people just, feeling that they didn't have anybody around. It's true. There was times that I felt very lonely, and I wasn't lonely, but it was the fact that I couldn't talk to anybody because of how sick I was. Like, even whenever I would try to FaceTime or talk, I just was that sick. But it made me realize that I wanted to make sure that my health was in check. I wanted to make sure that I wanted to be the best person that I could be. Not only the best mom, the best wife, the best friend, the best manager. I'm very hard on myself about being a best manager that I can, because I have had different leaders within, obviously within my career. And I always tell myself, I don't ever want to do that, what my leader did to me. If it was something that, especially if it's something that I can associate with how it made me feel. Because now, since I have gone through that and knowing how it made me feel, I would never want one of my teammates, or one of my associates, or even one of my peers to feel that way, because I know the feeling that there is behind it. And so I know that you don't want to make it about fitness, but it is a big part. It is a big part. So coming back this week was my first week. And so I actually went to Gold's Gym yesterday, thanks to you, right off of Dove. And I remember texting Mona, and I'm just like, God, I feel so out of place. And it wasn't so out of place that I didn't know what I was doing. It felt out of place because since I had been gone for 3 weeks, it just feeling so weak. And I think that that's the part that sometimes people don't realize, that, oh, they're always working out or they're always doing this, like they can't be away from the gym. But sometimes one day is enough to set you back a couple of days. And even whenever I told Chris, I was like, here I am about to start all over again. He's like, but you're not going to start without the knowledge.
True.
You have the knowledge that you didn't have before through this whole training process. It's now we're like just going to increase the volume, decrease the weight. He's like, but as long as you're back, he's like, that's starter right there. And so that's why I told myself, even though I'm here under these circumstances, let me go to the gym. Even whenever you and I went last night, it was well o'clock until 9 o'clock last night. But it's at least, hey, I'm at least going and trying to get it done. So I know that you were mentioning about work and stuff like that. I'll be as helpful as I can, but as not too much into depth, because at the same time, I am not by any means a professional, like a credit advisor, a financial advisor, anything like that. But I can give at least an idea, just like with you, and just like with anybody that I would give an idea to, of like, hey, at least you want to get this into place. Because I'll tell you, whenever I had see the first round and that I was that sick, it made me realize, like, damn, I'm in banking, and I advise people all the time, like, get your life in order, get your wills together, get your power of attorneys in line, get your life insurance in line. And then I did a self-check, and I was just like, how the hell am I advising these people to do all this whenever I don't have that?
Oh, you didn't have
like, I know what I wanted, and many times we know what we want. We know the order that we want it. We just haven't set it into motion. And sometimes it's, we were taught, especially coming from a Hispanic background, we were always trained, like with our parents being Mexican and stuff, it's almost taboo to talk about stuff. You don't talk about financials in front of the kids. Like, they don't need to be knowing if we're going through any hard times, or they don't need to be knowing the business. But sometimes they don't realize that the lack of being able to show, and it's not lack of them not knowing, they weren't taught that stuff by their families, right? Our family came from Mexico, and they weren't taught about being able to have a life insurance in place if something was to happen, or having a will in place, or what is it that your wishes are whenever it's time to go, and especially the credit.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know about credit. I didn't know about anything, and until I graduated. But even whenever I graduated, they didn't teach that in the high school. You know, and so being able to stop the not knowing and passing on the knowledge that you do know. It's like I tell everybody now, like my daughter, she's 18, my oldest, she's gonna be 19, but I've had her with her own credit since she was like 15.
Yeah.
She's not doing anything with it. I'm the one that's doing everything with it, but she's going to be on the right track of, if now she wants to go and purchase a vehicle on her own or whatnot, she's already going to have the credit behind her. She knows, hey, this is what they need. This is what the minimum payment is. She knows that knowledge now, because unfortunately they are not teaching that anywhere else.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So first of all,
sorry, that was a long intro. I'm so sorry.
No, so that was already past the intro. That was good though. And I'm gonna touch on two things out of all that, but you know, I think it's kind of going back to the whole health thing before we come into you know, your work area. I do like to like kind of exclamation point on the health aspect, because at the end of the day, like, you know, you have family, you have kids, or you have parents, you have goals, you have whatever you have like in life, and when you want to do your absolute best to be your absolute best, like, so that way whatever you got going on in your life, you can, you know, do it at your absolute best. And the only way to do that is to be consistently healthy for the most part. Now, no one's asking you to be perfect, to not enjoy your, you know, your guilty pleasures, or just like go on vacation and skip the gym 2 months. You can do all of that. But I think we have to be very aware and conscious that, you know, if we really want to last as long as possible, to be there for the people that we love the most as long as possible, is that we have to be able to take care of ourselves like the best that we can.
Yes.
You know, and sometimes that does require, and the word is require, to invest into like a trainer, or just a situation where they're going to hold you accountable. But by the end of it, by the end of the journey, when you look back, you'll realize like how much you've been able to benefit from the situation, right? So that's first and foremost. You know, I really encourage everybody that's listening to really consider, if you haven't yet, you know, to kind of take a step back, reevaluate your life in the health aspect, and kind of see, you know, kind of make a checklist off of how you feel. If you feel negative, you feel depressed, sad, tired, heavy, sleepy all the time, you lack motivation, you lack discipline, I think it's, you know, time to consider, you know, a big change, you know, because I think, like you mentioned before, like we've all been in certain situations where, you know, we lack all of those things. I know that I have, and I remember one point in my life where I was ridiculously like, I didn't go to the gym for like 8 months. Like there was no weightlifting, nothing, no exercise. And I just felt tired, heavy all the time. And I told myself, this isn't good. Like, you know, when something about you is not good.
Right.
And that's you telling yourself that something needs to change. So,
right.
You know, for those listening, please, you know, heavy consider that, you know, if there's time to make a change, make a change.
Yeah.
Now, in regards to what you were talking about, like your oldest, which is Miria, right?
Miria.
She's about to be 19, right?
Yes, in November.
In November. So she essentially has a current situation where, you know, she's on a good path for her credit, correct?
Yeah. I mean.
Right?
I mean, so basically what I did is that, and I think that this is the part that a lot of people that don't realize how easy it is, right? That if you are like myself, what I did is I had one credit card and it had a low limit on it, right? And I was always mad because for whatever reason that credit card never wanted to increase my limit, but yet all my other ones were always like, hey, congratulations, we have increased you. And I'm just like, okay, well, clearly this one isn't going to get used because they don't value me as a client, but because it was my very first credit card that I had ever got. You know, whenever you're at the college, they're like, sign this paper here and get a shirt. That was me because I didn't know any better. And so then I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and add her. And I added her as an authorized user. So when you add someone as an authorized user, basically what you do is whatever history you have on that card, they are now going to have that under their credit. So because of that card, I mean, I use it mainly for my gas because it has a 3% cash back on gas. So of course, that's my gas card, and that's one card that I'm not worried that if it does get compromised, because since it's my lowest credit limit one, it's a card that I can easily get replaced. That's not my main credit card.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I'll give it to her if she ever loses her card. If hers get compromised, I know that although it has a fraud protection on it, but I know that it's not going to be one of my main cards. I'm not going to be impacted negatively. And so basically I pay it off in full every month because I just use it for my gas. And then now that she's working, she's using it for her gas and everything like that. And so right now I would easily say that she has great credit, but just because she has all that payment history, and she's now been on it. It's going to be 4 years because I put her on since she was 15, and now with my son JJ, he's going to be 15 in October. So his time is coming up that I'll put him on that card as well, so he can start building his credit as well.
Yeah, so that's exactly like a phenomenal credit to me. I mean, honestly, the first time that I even got into credit or thinking about it was when I was probably maybe 24.
Yeah.
So it's like, because of the same thing. My parents, like, they never spoke about that, in front of us. And honestly, maybe they didn't because it was, most of the time like a bad situation. But and this is something that I'll just a couple of years ago put myself into, but still learning as I go. And I know that essentially to be able to have purchasing power for the most part, just depending on the level of product or whatever you're looking to buy, invest in, whatever. I mean, credit is going to be a massive asset, right?
Yeah, and the thing is that you're going to have your people that are going to say, I hate credit cards. Genuinely, that goes hand in hand with people that have had a bad experience with credit. I mean, it's almost like with you. If I go and I ask you about a phone service and I mention one, you're going to be like, oh, they're horrible. You probably had a bad experience with them, because if you had had a good one, you wouldn't be talking negatively about it, correct? And so the thing is, like, credit cards can be horrible. Yes, they can be bad, but it's also, you have to have that self-discipline to be able to control. And that is why you get your credit score, because you are showing a credit card like, hey, you can give me a $15,000 credit limit, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to go and max it out, all of it, right? Like, I can show you that I have the ability to use it as needed or whatnot, being able to pay it or pay it off, whatever your situation is. That's how you are showing how responsible that it is that you are. But if you have a card and you're maxed out at all the time, whenever you're over that ratio of what you should be at, now the credit bureau is seeing you now depend on that credit card to being able to live on a day-by-day basis.
Which is not good.
Which is not good.
At all.
At all. No, not at all. And so I always tell people that, they're great to have in a type of an emergency, especially because you imagine, like, what if you were living paycheck to paycheck and your tire blows? And you don't have the money in your paycheck, in your checking account to be able to get that tire fixed. Then how are you going to get to work to get the next paycheck to fix it? But if you have a credit card, now you can at least fix it and then make a payment towards it, or make payment arrangements, whatever it is that you need, as long as you're making the minimum payment. But I also feel that cards, at least for me, I won't use my debit card for anything because there's so many scams, there's so many fraud going around and stuff like that. And it's easier to get your money back on a credit limit that is being loaned out to you as opposed of your own money. Because yes, the banks will get you your money back, as best as they can, but it might not be in a time manner that works for you. You might say, well, I need it tomorrow. And they're like, well, it's going to be anywhere from 5 to 7 days. That's where it creates an issue. And so that's where, for me, I use my credit cards for everything. And then I just pay it off because I was going to pay those bills off anyways. And I'm rewarding myself in a sense because that's the way to do it.
Yeah. And I was going to mention, now that you bring that up, and I'm, I guess unknowingly, like, I've been trying to prioritize my credit card, but because I have one that has 2% cash back across the board. So it's like on everything, according to what they said. So I'm just like, well, I mean, I might as well just use this for everything and then, kind of stay away from the debit card and then just make payments on my card. Like, what I'll do, and maybe it's not a good practice, I don't know, but what I do is like every time I get paid for my job, I go into my credit card and I just make like a, I don't know, $200, $300 payment. So I do that like, twice or once or twice a month.
Yeah.
To make it towards a payment. I mean, I'm not sure of the ideal timing to pay, your credit card, but and I say that because I have been using my credit card because you're gonna make those payments anyway.
Yeah.
You're gonna make those expenses, and then I'm at least getting 2% on
Right.
everything.
Yeah. So the timing, whenever, I mean, you might be like, okay, this is new to me. I haven't used my card like this before. You might want to say, like, let me at least make a payment out of each paycheck. That way is no se me hace tanto at the end, right?
That's what I'm thinking.
Unless you're self-disciplined
Yeah.
to know, like, hey, I know that I have spent this much and I need to make sure that I'm keeping this so much in my checking account, right? And so I think that as long as you're paying off if your plan was to pay off the balance in full, as long as you're paying it off by the due date, then you don't got to worry about that interest rate. And that's a part that a lot of people, they're like, well, what's the interest rate on it? Well, if you pay your balance in full every month, it don't really matter. Right? I mean, like, because at the end of the day, that's whenever you got to be, if you're looking to earn the rewards, like in your case, at 2%, if you're going to sit here and say, well, I want to earn the 2% rewards on this stuff, but I'm not going to pay my balance off in full, then now you're paying a price for that 2%.
Yeah, which is with the interest.
Correct.
Okay.
So right there, you would be gaining something out of it, the 2%, if you're paying it off in full.
Yeah.
And I mean, and there's some cards that are great. I mean, and there's some cards that come with the annual fees, obviously, but if it depends, you have to weigh out the annual fee. If like, okay, that makes sense for me, like, having that card because of the benefits that it does. The one card that I have for everything, whenever I went to California for 2 full weeks, all my hotel stays were 100% free.
Really?
Yeah. And then so right now that I'm here, my full week here is 100% free.
Because of that card?
Because of that card. So, so yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, that's my benefit for me. So, you have your different cards, and there's going to be ones that give you different bonuses and stuff. But for me, this is my main card and I use it to pay all my bills. It's like you said, like it's your monthly expenses, you're already going to have them. You know that you're already going to have to pay. So just you doing it that way, it's going to be, now you're paying yourself a little bit back.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's exactly what I've been trying to do. And I'm hoping to obviously, have that more under control because I can definitely do better to, fix that credit because, hopefully in the near future, might be looking into them purchasing a home or something like that.
We might have to have a one-off conversation.
A one-off conversation?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you're like, I don't know if I'm doing as great. So it's like, okay, we're going to have to have one-off conversation.
Yeah. So I mean, this is something that I'm still learning as I go, but yeah, so that's super cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else like in regards to any tips and tricks in that area that you might think of that I might not have asked, like in regards to I don't know, credit or an account or I really like that authorized user, right? On the credit card, like having your
But don't add your kid if you're not being responsible with your own card.
Oh yeah,
like that's for sure. Like don't do your kid dirty like that because there's been times that you see other reports and even kids will be like, well, my mom was using my social and opened up all these credit cards. Like there's some kids that they don't deserve that, because you can't do that to your kids when you weren't responsible enough with your own credit, know? And I will tell you that my credit was not always perfect. It wasn't, people that know me, know my life situation that I've been through. And, whenever my first divorce, I had made the mistake that everything was in my name. And so whenever I walked away and I affected my credit a lot. And there was times that, the credit cards were like, hey, we're increasing your interest rate to the max. And if you didn't know, even if your payment history is perfect with one card, if there's any disarray in your credit history or if you were late on something else, they have the ability to increase your rate across because there has been...
Across,
yeah. Like with any creditors, anything like that. And I'll never forget whenever I had made that call and I was just like, I just don't understand what's going on in the representative on the other side of the phone told me that. And it was a hot mess because I was crying. And in my mind, I was just like, okay, do I sit here and get angry and close this one credit card out? Or do I keep it because I already have it? They can't take it away from me, like, unless I say, hey, close it.
Yeah.
And then I would have to go through the whole credit process again. So I kept it. I kept the card and I was like, you know what? Fine. Whatever the interest rate is. But then I told myself, okay, I'm going to still use it, even if it's putting $50 a month on it, $100 a month, paying it off in full. And I did that. And I still have that card to this day.
Really?
And that card, every single month, they're like, hey, we have increased your credit line. We have increased your credit line. Because I just kept it, and they readjusted the interest rate once everything did. Once everything was cleared up, and it took me a while. And I think that that's the part that many times people have a misconception. I think that that's a word that I would use, a misconception of that. They're like, well, I've been paying my bills off. I've been doing good with my credit. Well, how long have you been doing it for? 1 month? That's not how it works. It's almost just like, and this goes hand in hand with the fitness stuff. You can eat perfect and work out forever, and you're going to take so long to see results. Be off track for a week and you gain like 10 pounds. Yeah. That's exactly what's going to happen with your credit. Like, it takes a while, but the minute you make a mistake with your credit, you get a little small blemish, here's your rate being affected, you know? And I think that that is the part that people have a misconception, that they believe that something is going to work overnight, and it's not. You're going to have to put the time and the effort into it, and it is going to take a little bit, but that is why starting off as soon as you can. And if you don't have credit, it's just as bad as having bad credit. That's right? True. Because you have nothing in your power to show the creditor, like, hey, I'm a good candidate. I'm good. I'm dependable. Lend me this money. Yeah. And I think that that's where sometimes people have to start of, hey, if you can't get a regular credit card, get yourself a secured credit card, or go to a place that offers you credit, like whether you might need a mattress or you might need a TV, like
in-store credit.
Yeah, in-store credit. And a lot of people think that, oh, well, I have the cell phone. The cell phone isn't going to do anything for you. Unfortunately, the cell phone gets you when you don't pay the bill and it gets sent to collections. That's whenever it affects you. But besides that, something like in-store credit is where you need to start. Something small. Even if you're like, well, I live at home. Okay, does your mom need a fridge? Sure, yeah. Go and get that in-store credit, because even if your mom is like, hey, I'm going to pay for the fridge, go ahead and put it in your name. You already know that your mom's going to pay it, but at least start building your credit somewhere.
Yeah, that's actually what I did. Well, I mean, my mom did for me one time. It was actually their fridge. Yeah, it was like when we went.
I did not know that story.
I know. That's why whenever we moved into the house, obviously she was getting appliances, and she was like, hey, I'm going to get the fridge that we got, and she'll put it on your account, and I'm going to pay for it. And she did. So that did help. So that's what I did. Mom was able to do that, and then you mentioned the secure credit card. That's actually what I did personally. I went and got one because I didn't have any credit history besides that, but that happened, a long time ago. So I went and got a secure card. I did very well on that for a couple of years, and then I went to the same bank that I was at, and they offered me, now a credit card. So now I have one. That's the one I could do better on, but I'm working on it so far, and it's so far for the most part under control.
And the thing is that many times that, we try to show a loyalty, right, to the bank that we may bank with, anybody, like in general. And they're like, well, I went to my bank and they denied me. But the one piece that they miss sometimes is that there's different people that have different approval guidelines. And I mean that, like, some people might have higher regulations that they may need to follow, or that, your credit criteria might have to be a little bit higher. And so I have always been the type of person, even with clients in my office, that I have told them, I said, I get it what you're looking for. If it ain't here, I'll guide you somewhere else. Because the reality is that first and foremost, you're always trying to look out for the client, right? Yeah. And that's something that I would always follow through with. It's not about me getting a tick mark for my business, or it's not me, because the client's always going to come back remembering, like, wow, she sent me off to someone else, but because she's really looking out for me. Exactly. Or she thought that this was perhaps the best guidelines, because that's what the clients are going to remember. And so I always tell people that, hey, go somewhere else. Or I know sometimes people I always receive random text messages like, hey, I'm looking for a credit card, or I'm needing to do this. What do you think? And it's always like, hey, this is what I think that you should do, or this is what I have been able to get started. So,
Well, there you go, guys. If you have been, if you've been having trouble with that credit card, I get it. You're right. A lot of people do have I guess it has like a bad stigma or whatever to it. When people think about credit cards,
yeah.
I'm sure there's companies out there that could be very predatory.
Yes, and stay away. Like you should, like I said earlier, you should not have to pay, especially when you're just starting off. You should not be going with those cards that have an annual fee or anything
Yeah.
like that just to have a credit. Now, there's some people that say, I had bad credit. I need that. I'm willing to pay that fee to get my credit on track. It's understandable. But if you're starting off, first and foremost, there's a lot of cards out there, like especially for college students.
Yeah.
Everything like that, that are starting to wanting to pick up on their credit. So just do your research, guys,
Yeah.
because you put out there, hey, best credit, like even just on Google, like, hey, best credit cards for no credit, bad credit students, and it will give you a list, and it will give you reviews on all of them, and also on the rewards. Same
Yeah.
thing, like you can just look it up. So it's more just putting the
The
time
the
to
effort,
being able
yeah.
to educate yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, doing your due diligence before you make a decision
Yes.
that is essentially going to stick with you for a while.
Yes.
So yeah, make sure you guys are doing that. Now, my next, thing that I'd like to kind of, get into with you, because I've always found it very interesting. I'm a person who's very interested in leadership, personal development. Most of my listeners, if they don't know, they should know that by now. I like to talk about mindset, things of that nature. But you're a manager,
Yes.
right? At your bank.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say what bank? You don't have to. I was just wondering. You should just tell me, right? No, just kidding. No, you don't have to. But so tell me how. So you weren't always in a position of leadership, right?
No.
So tell me how that process has been for you from going to, I guess, an employee, right?
Right.
And into like a position where you have to now manage however many people you might be managing.
Yeah. So funny enough, like whenever I was in high school, I wanted to be a realtor. Like, plus I got the
I could definitely
personality
see
for
that.
it because
100%. Yeah.
hey, y'all want to be friends?
Yeah.
Y'all want to be friends? Like, let's go to dinner or something. Like, people know I like to be a host for everything. I'll throw a mean party at that.
That is true.
But whenever I got married young, and I had moved over to Riverview. I lived in Riverview for about, I want to say 2 to 3 years. And I was just looking for a job, And I remember that I had always wanted to work in a bank whenever I didn't go into real estate, because at that point it's like the market started not being great. And I was like, okay, maybe let me just see what else I can find in banking, because, I see it interesting. And I remember that I interviewed so many times. I mean, I would go and interview with one bank so many times. And I don't know why my heart was so set on that one bank, but I think it's because everybody that's Hispanic has grown up thinking like, hey, this bank is everywhere. Everybody has this bank. It's like if people told you, yeah, go and open an account, this is the bank that you were going to. And I would always fill out the application. I would always make it to the interview. And they'd always be like, like, we think that you interviewed great. You have a great smile. Don't know what my smile had to do with it, but I was like, okay. And they're like, but you don't have cash handling experience. And I'm just like, okay. And so that was hard. And that was a very hard pill to swallow time and time again, because obviously with dad, being with dad, we dealt with cash, and even so, like, just on different situations. Like I remember being a little girl, and when dad's workers and everything, like me and Mona, we would hustle. Like we were little entrepreneurs. Like we'd bake cupcakes on a Sunday because we know the guys were off, and we'd bake cupcakes, and we would go out and where the workers were, and we'd sell cupcakes 25 cents, 50 cents a piece. And so, or even like the sodas and stuff. And that was us. And so we always had this mentality of, let's hustle, right? Let's start to learn how it is that nothing is given to you. Like you have to work for it. You have to earn it. And so I couldn't tell them like I have that cash handling experience. To them, it's like because it wasn't on a resume, because it wasn't in paper, I didn't have that experience to show. And so I was like, okay. And time, I applied at least 3 times with the same bank. And like I said, every single time I'd make it to the interview. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll interview with someone different that'll see some potential, something.
Yeah.
But no. And so finally, I started working at a call center. I started working at a call center
But for a bank.
for Citigroup. Yeah.
Okay.
So a call center, basically, I was taking inbound calls. This is where I learned a lot of this stuff for the credit cards because I was actually on the bilingual line. And the great thing about call centers is if you work on the weekend, you get a weekend differential pay. And then if you're bilingual, meaning you're taking bilingual calls in, you get a differential pay for that as well. And if you worked on holidays, if you picked up overtime was allowed, it was a great opportunity. If you're like, man, I'm stressing for money, like you could pick up extra hours, right? And so that gave me a lot of intro into customer service and what it is and learning about the credit cards. And at first it was one of those things like when people would call and they would complain about like, I got an interest fee rate, like charge about $2. And I'd be like, man, these people are complaining about $2. And then now I'm that person that complains about $2 if I get it because now I understand it because it's not about the $2, it's about the principal. Like I pay off my balance in full.
Exactly.
Why am I having to pay you interest whenever I did my part in paying off the balance in full,
100%.
right? So now I understand it. So I apologize to all those people that I thought that y'all were crazy because I'm now that crazy person.
Yeah.
And so I worked at Citigroup, I want to say for about a year. I worked for Citigroup about a year. And then I had applied at Wachovia. So I had applied at Wachovia as a teller. And so I was able to get in as a teller. Like whenever I went to my interview, I told I was like, listen, I've been to so many interviews for a banking position. I know what you're going to tell me. I don't have cash handling experience. I said, but I want to tell you about the experiences that I have had handling cash. And so she told me, and I will never forget, and I remember her name still to this day. And she's like, you know what? I don't need you to have cash handling experience because I can teach anybody how to count money.
Wow.
That right there has stayed with me and it resonated with me. And I have used that now as a manager myself, right? Because I knew what it felt like. I knew how it felt knowing the potential that you had, but because it wasn't on a resume for you to be turned down so many times. And I was at Wachovia. I want to say that I was there for about 6 months and I ended up having to leave, but obviously because at that point I was going through my divorce and everything like that. So I had to move back home and stuff. And so whenever I had moved back home, there was a Wachovia in the town close to home, right? And they only had a part-time position open. And I was like, no, I need a full-time. So I waited. I was like, and in myself, I had told myself, like, you know what, if I can't find a job, then that's my cue that I need to go back to school, right?
Okay.
Because I had pushed it off and everything like that. And whenever I didn't find a job, immediately I enrolled and I went and I got my AA in accounting of all things, right? Like I went and got that because I felt like accounting would give me an opportunity to go into either way direction that I wanted to, whether it was in the banking industry, whether it was in a CPA office or just running your own business, right? And so it was going to be the last semester to get not the last semester, I'm sorry. It was literally the last class and it was ending in about a month. And I looked again at Wachovia and now they had a full-time position open, bilingual preferred. So I never dialed a phone number so fast to the branch, and the branch leader answered the phone. And I told her, I was like, you know, I actually just worked for Wachovia so many months ago, but I had to end up leaving because I moved closer to home. And I said, I'm looking to be back with a company. And she goes, fill out that application now. And so I did. I went and I did my interview like the next day, and I hadn't made it home, which was about a 30, 45 minute drive. And recruiting was already calling me and they offered me the position. So when I went in as a full-time teller. And when I got there, I told my manager, I was like, I wanted you to know from me. I said that I get it that you hired me as a teller. And I said, but I want to move as fast and furious as I can through this company. And I said, because I know what the end goal is for me, that I know that I want to be at least a branch manager. Okay. And so I said, I want you, and this is me opening up the doors to you, that whatever it is that you think that I need to be able to develop myself, the skills that I may need, whatever it is that I need to be able to move from position to position, that I'm able to accomplish that. And if you're willing to guide me through that and coach me through that, I'm game.
Just stop right there real quick. That's crazy though, because honestly, wow. Like, how many people can muster that courage alone and confidence to be able to know what it is that they want, know that the person that can probably help them the most, and say it that way and say, hey, I know what I want. I'll do whatever it takes as long as you're willing to guide me. There's a lot of people out there, like, I've been in those situations where I know that I'm more than good enough for the position, but it's like, I don't want to ask.
But what's the worst that they can say, though?
Exactly. But what's incredible is that, like, you went in there, obviously, they just gave you the opportunity. And then you were like, you just, as soon as you got in there, you created another opportunity. And it's like, I feel like that's huge with anyone that might be like in the workforce or anyone doing their own thing. It's like, you really have to know. I feel like your clarity on knowing what it is that you wanted, your end goal, gave you that like ability and confidence to be like, hey, I don't care what it takes. I don't care who you are. I need this. I want this. What do I got to do?
The thing is that it's hard, right? Because you don't want somebody to be like, who the hell does she think she is, right? But the thing is that if people like you, they're not going to take it like that. And if they don't like you, they're going to take that whether you say it that way or if you say it any other way. That's a good point. Right? Or there's going to be people that are going to be intimidated, right? And it's not intimidated by like, oh, she looks like she's mean or she looks like she's mad. They're just intimidated by the fact that you had the ability to speak what you needed to speak, or you have the ability to say like, I want to do this. If you didn't have the courage to be able to say what you want to say, you can't come and shit on me for that.
Yeah.
Like, right? I mean, and that's and I think that what's hard is that I live in a vicious circle, right? I live in a vicious circle. And even my current manager tells me this all the time, that when Chela's good and my mindset is good, no bitch can stop me. Like, you can't tell me nothing. You can't change my mindset. You can't change my path. I know what it is. I know that I'm good. But then there's days, because I'm human, we all are, that I allow that doubt to seep through. That I allow someone's actions feel like they're a reflection on my leadership. Even though that they're not. But to me, they are.
Especially in the leadership position.
Right? And so that's hard on me. And so there'll be days that I just feel that I'm not a good leader. I will self-doubt myself. And there will be times that I question, do I need to step down?
Wow.
Do I need to stop being a leader? And crazy enough, though, because this goes into, like you said, you didn't want to make it about fitness, but people do not realize how much fitness can be so parallel with stuff that we do every day, right?
Good point.
I remember that every time that I was going to go and train with Chris, right, I'd make myself sick with nerves, right? Nerves, because who doesn't want to do good? Who doesn't want to kill it at the gym? Who doesn't want to be like, man, I showed the hell up. I killed it. Like, I was repping. I went heavy. I had new best numbers. But then I'll never forget the one when we had first started. We were doing them hip thrusters because, damn, he likes to kill everybody with those damn things, right? But they work.
Yeah.
You want an ass? They work. And I remember that he had already put me through a vigorous leg workout. I'm talking about he was maxing me out on everything. He had just maxed me out on the hack squat, everything like that. And when we went to the hip thrusters, I basically did my reps until my legs literally gave out from me, you know? And he's like, you're done. But it sounded like you're done, like a disappointed done.
Like you're done.
And I literally started tearing up there. And mama ain't raised no bitch, guys, but you know, if I'm upset, I'll cry.
Yeah.
Or if I'm angry at myself. And I said, I'm not done. Even with tears in my eyes, I said, I'm not done. He's like, I just maxed you out on everything. He's like, you're done. He's like, your legs have given out. And afterwards, when we talked about it, he said, you can't expect to come in every single time and not fail. Because if you don't fail, then I'm not doing my job. But the difference is that you may fail today on what we just did, but the next time you come and see me, you will now fail on the next max number because we're getting past what you failed today.
Yeah.
It was one. I hate it when you're right. It felt like that, but it made perfect sense when he said it. It made perfect sense. And then now the mentality was whenever I would change at work into my gym clothes to go and train with him, now it was flipping a switch. Now I'm going to go and fail somewhere, as opposed that at work I'm just like, I'm not going to fail. But I was mentally preparing myself that I now knew that I was about to go and do my workout, and I was setting myself up that I knew that I was going to fail, but not fail because that's the end game, but more that I'm failing today, but tomorrow I will be stronger than what I was the day before.
Almost like you're failing forward.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like now, how do I tell my brain to get that into my daily routine, right? Because otherwise I wouldn't be in this vigorous circle. And for all of y'all that have it together and that self-affirmations and everything like that, I've tried it. I've pointed myself in the mirror and was like, get your shit together. Like that meme. But it's just who we are. You know, it's just who we are. And it goes back to what I was telling you, that when we go and we are our worst critics, because once again, taking it back to, I want to be the best mom. I want to be the best wife. I want to be the best friend, the best manager. It takes time and effort, and there's going to be days that you are going to fail at being the best at something. But then it's going to take someone to being like, okay, you failed today, but tomorrow you're going to be better, because you're not going to make that same mistake that perhaps you made the day before.
Yeah.
Right? And so as a leader, telling them what I wanted, everything just kind of, guys, I'm so sorry. Like, I know that we just went like in a big old circle talking about where we had started. So I went in, told her what I wanted, and it's almost like stuff starting falling apart at work. Not in a bad way though. It's almost just like I was a teller, and immediately like they started showing me how to do different stuff, you know, and I was taking on like different responsibilities. Then the one that was in charge of the tellers, like the teller manager, all of a sudden she was moving. She was moving somewhere else. And at this point, I had already been there for about 4 or 5 months. And when I told my manager, I said, I'm applying for that position. I'm letting you know, that way you're not surprised. Why is the application coming through? And I remember that she wanted me, and her manager said, are you sure? Because she just started, like, and she's like, but if that's your decision, you have to live with that decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so she's like, no, that's what I want. And so we created this relationship, right? And even to this day, I will sit here and message that manager that was my manager. And there was days that she was great, and there was days that she was tough as nails, but I appreciated that, you know? And then sometimes I would be like, I want to thank you for always giving me the opportunity, because she is the one that gave me that door.
Yeah.
She opened that door for me to go into the management position, because then shortly after that, she ended up having to leave. And who stepped in? Because since I was a teller manager, now I was acting branch leader as well. And at that point, my area leader had brought another branch leader in, you know, and I said, you know, this is what my plan is. Like, I'm not sure if they shared it with you, but this is what I want to, this is what my career path is. And she's like, we need you to learn the banker position, like the banker platform side, the customer service side. Okay. So, but she knew that my career path was this. Then that manager didn't last long. So she's like, well, okay, I'm going to move you to a banker position. I was like a banker for a month. I was a banker for a month, killed my numbers, everything like that. The position opened up and they moved me over. I stayed in the same branch the whole time. Like I stayed in the branch the whole time. And so it was great because the customers saw me that I went up in a leadership, right? And so it was great. I stayed with the company even whenever we transitioned. We transitioned over to Wells Fargo. I stayed with the company for 5 years. The area leader, she ended up moving to another bank, and that's when I followed. I followed because her leadership was great, tough. You always knew where you stood, and there was days that you're like, damn, she's really tough on me, but it's what it made me what I am today. And then now, whenever I came over to the new bank and everything like that, I am with Truist Bank. I was with SunTrust, and then we recently became Truist Bank. So I have been with the company for 9 years. Okay, so April will be 10 years with this new company. Yes. So I love it. It's tough, but I think that comes with any type of leadership position. I think that anywhere that it is right now, dealing with employees, dealing with a ever moving, changing market, with everything, it's difficult no matter where you're at, what bank you are at. My end goal is not just being a branch manager. I know that I want to be an area leader. And an area leader, basically what it is now you're managing a cluster of different branch leaders, right? And so that's where I'm at now. That is where I'm at now.
That's so sick, though. That's so cool. Like, just slightly off topic. I remember, I don't know what this was for, to be honest with you, but I remember you invited us to kind of go with you one time. It was South Florida. It was like me. You remember Alex? We went to like the beach, but you had like some conference.
That's
or
whenever I
something.
went for banker training.
Okay, dude, that was a
best trip ever. Yeah. So I mean, because you would go for training, and it's like they'd send you off to, now of course all the training is online and everything, because that's one of the good things that came out of the C word. Like everybody realized, hey, we can do a lot more Zoom calls and everything efficient. Like that. That's why whenever you're like, hey, I want to do a podcast, man, I do these all the time. Not a podcast though, but being on a phone, speaking, and that's it. Like, it's really nothing not to feel comfortable with. Yeah. So, but like I said, my girls know that I care greatly for them. And I'm saying my girls, like at the bank, because I think that the mistake sometimes is that people don't want you to have a relationship, right? Like they're like, oh, you shouldn't be friends with your employees and stuff like that. And I can understand that, I can understand it. But what's great is when you have teammates that become your friends because of work, but they're able to separate friendship and work, that they're still giving you that respect, right? And doing what we're hired to do, or, what their daily job is. That makes it easy. Yeah. That makes it a lot easier, and to have that friendship. And the reality of it is sometimes it's very, very hard not to have a friendship with these people that you spend more time with in your own family, True. And so you create a bond and you create a trust, because that is important. You want to have someone that's going to have your back, or that they have the sense of that you have their back. And I'm always the one to tell my team, I was like, listen, if you mess up anywhere, please run and tell me, right? Run and tell me what it is. Not because you're afraid that I'm going to get onto you or anything like that. But I'm always the type of like, I'd rather be told ahead of time. That way, if anybody ever comes to me and be like, oh, well, this happened. Like, yeah, you're always already aware. Like, not to where you're being caught off guard, or if you can get ahead of it and diffuse the situation in any way, that's my mentality.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I've always been, I've had a few positions of leadership, but mainly with kids and, like 16 and younger, but so, that type of situation has always been, important to me, because, one of my things moving forward, at some point I would love to be in some type of position of leadership. It doesn't have to be like a big group. It could be like a one-on-one, whatever it may be, but I'd like to kind of know, just certain ways to behave, to speak, to to handle, to manage, to respond, to listen to certain people, even groups at a time, and then just to essentially be able to make like a positive impact, right?
Yeah.
So that's, my goal at some point. I mean, hopefully, one day, and I think that's incredible. And I know that I'm assuming area leader.
Mm-hmm.
Area leader would obviously bring on more responsibilities, and I think, as you grow and as you try to get to that point. I mean, every experience that you're gonna have on the way, all of the things that you're gonna learn. I mean, I think that's essentially where the most value is, right?
Yeah.
That's always been my mindset. It's like wherever you're trying to go, it's like don't be blind to the journey you're on, because that's essentially where you become the person that you're gonna be. Right. Is on the journey. So I'm excited for you. I think that's going to be incredible. I didn't know that you were still going to shoot higher, so that's really cool. Yeah. And obviously that's.
I mean, I have my days.
Yeah.
Once again, like if I'm on the bad end of that circle that I was talking about, that's whenever I'm just like, oh my God, I can't even be a manager nowadays. How do I even want to be an area leader, right? And so, but then I have been very blessed in saying in my area leader that I have now, like he has been my biggest supporter. He has put me and advocated for me in a lot, to where he puts me in front of different peers, in front of different people that will have the opportunity, like they say, give you more vision, like to where they're able to see you more, they're able to interact with you more. But I do believe that it's been tough. It's been tough learning, trying to grow, but all I can do is try, you know, and I know that trying isn't a strategy, right?
Yeah.
but I can't say that I'm perfect. And so all I can do is put my best forth. And I know that whenever I'm having a good day, I know that I'm a good leader. Yeah. And the difference is when I do care. Not when I do care. I'm sorry, that came out wrong. The sense that that I can show that I do care about my team. Yeah. Even with me being gone now, it's been tough. Like, if there's problems, I'm always like, I'm sorry that I'm not there. And it's like they always tell me, like, you can't feel sorry for not being here, because you are allowed to step away or whatnot. But it's more of like, how can I ensure myself that I don't give myself that much of a guilt trip of doubting. Yeah. And so that is my area of opportunity and what I'm working on. But boy, whenever that circle is good,
it's good.
Yeah. Like, don't mess with me, because I know my stuff. Like, I know what I'm talking about. Like, you need help, I'll help you. And I'm just that type of person. And so in and out of work, that's just me. So.
Yeah. One thing's for sure. If it was easy, every single person would do it. Right. So that's the beauty of why you're in that position, because not everybody can. But kind of going back to like when you mentioned that you're your biggest critic, because I am too. Like, that's something growing up. It's like nobody could ever tell me anything that I hadn't already told myself.
Right.
But on the flip side, I had to teach myself to also be my biggest supporter.
Right.
It's like I know when I've done stuff well, it's like I've already acknowledged it. Yeah. And I've told myself, hey, well done, right? And when people congratulate me or say, hey, good job, it's like I extremely appreciate it, but like I was already, I was able to see that for myself as well. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes we get caught in that part of the cycle where it's like, okay, yeah, we're the biggest critics. Okay, cool. But are you also supporting yourself as well when you do well? You know, we have to have that balance for sure. Mm-hmm. I think it's extremely important. But you gonna say something?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you were going to say something. Yeah, but I think for the most part, that was because that was honestly a phenomenal episode. And I think I lied to everybody at the very beginning. I said this was episode 29. It's actually episode 30. Yeah. Okay. Because
30, guys.
Yeah. So honestly, I say this every episode because it's true. Like, I never thought like I would even get to, 30 episodes. And I've been ridiculously blessed with the guests that have been down to do an episode with me. Even to the people that when I first tell them, and they're like, no, I'm not doing it because what am I going to talk about, right? Yeah. So
I mean, we could be going on and on.
No, yeah.
We could go maybe episodes 35.
Yeah. And
I've been through a lot, guys, so I got a lot to talk about. But I thank you for having me here. And I will say that, hopefully this isn't the last time. Although I did tell you, hey, you need me to buy anything, and I do it on my end, and we could do
and we are
a virtual one.
1,000%.
We got it. Or if you ever come to Florida.
1000%.
Because
I'm taking all this with me though.
Yeah.
Like
you can bring it.
And that's what I love about this whole setup is it's actually more mobile than I thought when I bought it.
Gotcha.
I thought it was gonna be so stationary, but it's like I've already learned that part. Was like,
you can do this from the beach.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I would like to get creative with it, you know, at some point. But you know, this whole time that we were talking, I'm gonna say this briefly. We don't have to expand too much on it, but you have. Just like you mentioned, your personality, like for real estate, you'd like to be a host of a lot of things. You throw really good parties. That's very true. But you know, you do very well in the seat that you're in and the way you speak. I can imagine you, even if it's like an interest of yours, or if it's truly there for you, if it's not no problem, you could be a massive resource. Like you have no idea how massive of a resource you can be as a like bank leader. Right? Having your own podcast where struggling tellers or anyone who might be interested in that type of thing, consider the journey. You just tell your stories, you know, your experiences, people tune in, brief episodes, and you'd have a phenomenal personality.
Listen, I'd be so afraid people be slapping me with different lawsuits left and right.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, there's a lot of opportunities, right? But sometimes people do get afraid of, there's so much negativity out there, you know, and that's why, you know, don't come at me about my double chin. I said it myself. Yeah. Don't come at me about it. So because that's just me, you know, it's like we all have our flaws, but the reality is that there are a lot of hateful people out there and they just can't see you being great.
Yeah.
How's that next person going to be great? Don't be giving her tips. She don't need to be greater than what she is already. Like, you know, but I think it's just like the fear. And then that's a part where that circle starts getting halfway and you're like, man, I don't think that I can do that. And even though you're like, yeah, I think to me, anybody that knows me, like I've had friends call me and they're like, hey, you know, I was thinking about getting a car. What do you think? This is wrong. And we're all in a different situation. And I'm never going to want to put somebody in a situation like, yes, go and put yourself in debt with this car and everything. It's almost like, listen, you can't be living out a rich life or a bougie life whenever you're on a beer budget. You can't do that. Like you have to pace yourself, right? But as long as you put yourself in a good situation and put the correct resources in front of you. And if you don't have them, find them, because like you said, there's so many things out there, excuse me. There's so many things out there that people don't take advantage of. Yeah. And I mean, I include myself in that. I do have different ideas. I know that I have told you before, like I have different ideas and my is just getting it on track.
Of course.
That's where I'm at. Like, and who do you ask? Because then like, what is it? And I'm just like, well, I don't want to tell you. Like, you're not going to take my idea away. Yeah. But it's the reality of it is that there's so many people that you think would clap for you. And those are the ones that are clapping against you. And I think that that's a fear. It's almost like I'm a big person of manifesting. I'm not going to let you manifest bad stuff on me. Mm-hmm. No, I get But it. I did want to add to you that whenever you're like, that you were mentioning about, I would like to see myself in a leadership position to be able to talk about this or being able to talk well and everything. You have to realize that you are already there. Whenever I have listened to the podcast and I have called you and given you feedback, right?
By the way, she was that listener I was telling you guys on the other episode that has watched most of my podcasts. So
yeah. So I'm the person that I'd be like, Adrian, I need to give you feedback. Yeah. But it goes back to the constructive criticism, right? About being able to take it. And you never once said, stop tearing my podcast apart, because it wasn't about that. It's more about getting comfortable in front of the mic, getting comfortable with the person in front of you. And you speak very well. You speak very well, the way that you acknowledge the people, the way that you bring a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge. And if you're not giving yourself credit for that, you should, because I hear it and it's great. I'm just like, damn, that's really smart, like what he said. And not that I don't think that you're a smart guy, but it's just sometimes people say they know a lot, but don't know how to say it. Yeah, and they sound like a jackass. Yeah. That's the truth. But I hope that you know that you have given a lot of knowledge, and at the end of the day, here you are, 30 podcasts deep. Yeah. And some people are going to be like, oh, that guy was never going to take off, you know, and here you are. I'm still 30 podcasts ahead of you. Yeah. That's the reality of it. So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that so much. Honestly, that means a lot, especially coming from someone whose responsibility, you know, is to be aware of that type of those things, you know, so that.
Well, you always got to open yourself. And this is the last part that I'll add on to it. I had one area leader. Damn, she was tough.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking about tough. Like, I was scared of her, but not scared to let her down, you know, because it was like, this is what is needed. This is what we need. And you always knew where you stood, right? And if you didn't do what you needed to do, or if you're like, damn, I didn't reach my goal or anything like that, it'd be like, okay, what's going to be our action plan? What are we going to do to be able to get there? What do I need to help you with, right? And anytime that she would put me, because she knew what my career path was, anytime she'd put me in a call, like, this lady would have me, I would be coming back on a Monday. I would be coming back on a Monday from vacation the week before. No knowledge of anything, what's going on. She goes, by the way, I'm going to have you run my call, because she knew I wanted to be an area leader. I'm going to have you run my call. I'm going to have you take commitments. I'm going to have you do this. This is what you're going to talk about. And everybody else would be like, how did you agree to do that when you're fresh coming out of vacation? I'm just like, I told her that I wanted to do it. So this is my opportunity. How am I going to say no now? Right.
Yeah.
But her putting me into she's like, of course you're going to be uncomfortable. You've never done it before. And I was like, she's so right. Like, of course I don't know what to expect because I've never done it before. Yeah. But anytime that I would speak on a call, or if I was on an area wide call, company wide call, if Graciela had a talk, she would always call me as soon as a call was over. And she goes, hey, I only got 5 minutes before I have to get in a meeting, anything like that. I got 2 things for you. This is what you did very well. This is what you need to work on. And it gave me the expectation and the knowledge of, I'm not perfect, right? But she would say, you did this very good. This is what you need to work on. That's where it was like, hey, you're saying too much. Yeah. You're saying okay, or whatever the word may have been. Yeah. And because she would tell me that, the next call that it would be, you can't say I'd have to prepare myself for that, right? And I would make notes and everything like that. And then whenever I had gotten my new area leader, when he called me to give me feedback, he's like, you did great. What did I do wrong? Mm-hmm. Well, nothing. You did great. No. I said, just so you know, I said, anytime you're going to give me feedback, I expect you to give me a good thing, and I need you to give me an area of opportunity. Okay. Because then I cannot get better. Yeah. So now he knows, which is my current manager. Yeah. Now he knows that he has to give me that. And I think that this is what the mentality that we have to prepare ourselves with. Yeah. Not only for us, for our kids, anything like that. Hey, when you did that spelling test, you did great. But you didn't read too good. They might be disappointed, but they're at least going to know, like, hey, I'm getting better. Like, I'm not perfect, but at least we know what we can do. And the next time goes back to the failing point. Mm-hmm. Now you know what you got to work on. Now you know what you're not going to fail on again on the next call. Yeah. So I might call you again for another podcast correction.
And that's perfectly fine, because whenever you made me aware of those things as I was doing my podcast, I'm like, okay. When I would hear my guest talk, I'm like, all right, when I speak, try not to, whatever. So it does make you more aware. And I agree that mindset people should definitely, be open to adopting, because, it's only just to make you better in whatever it is that, people are trying to help you with. But
for sure.
Yeah, cuz again, thank you so much for coming. Is there anywhere that people can find you on Instagram? I know, like, you're active, semi-active. You're pretty active on Instagram for the most part.
Okay, so people that they're like, you never post on Instagram. Well, I don't post, but I'm on there. Like, I'll look at stuff.
She's watching.
Everything like that. And sometimes I get into my rhythm of posting and stuff, but then sometimes I like back off a little bit. But my IG handle is babe, and then the number 2, and then boss, BOSS. Yeah. Babe to boss.
And guys, just, I tell this, for most of my guests, is like, go and give her a follow. This is a way to kind of just stay connected to the guests that I've had on the show and moving forward. This is definitely not the last time that, me and Chela, because that's, are going to be on the episode. So, That's it. That's it for today, guys.
Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 30 of the A7E podcast. Guys, please do not forget, if you've enjoyed the episode, please feel free to share it with someone that you like or you think is cool. Hopefully that they'll enjoy the episode as
There's
well.
There's something for everybody.
Yeah, there's something for everybody. I know these can be what some people might consider long, but this is a podcast. And I think it was a phenomenal one at that. So guys, thank you so much again for watching the episode 30 of the A7E podcast. This is your host, Jigga Dream. Until next time.
Thank you, guys. Bye.